الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر.
Welcome to another edition of Let the Quran Speak. My name is...
My pleasure to be on.
It is the month of Rabi al-Awwal when many Muslims across the world celebrate or commemorate the birth of the Prophet Muhammad. How can we best show our love for the Prophet Muhammad and our commitment to his message? We'll be looking at that a bit later. Also, we've talked a lot about the Shafia trial as court proceedings were taking place. But now the accused, the three family members, have been convicted of first-degree murder. So now we can talk more clearly about the outcome of the case. Was it an honor killing? And is honor killing a problem in Canada? What can we do to solve this problem? We'll be looking at that. Also, later in the show, we will have a question and answer period in which you can ask your questions and we will answer them. With me is Brother Shabir Ali from the Islamic Information Center. Brother Shabir, welcome to Let the Quran Speak.
My pleasure to be on.
Now let's talk about the birth of the Prophet Muhammad. Of course, it's not entirely clear when he was born, but many Muslims in this month celebrate or commemorate his birth.
Yes, and typically on the 12th of Rabi al-Awwal, which would have been just about a week ago, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, did not himself celebrate his birthday, but it is known from some reports that he was born on a Monday, because when it is noted that when somebody asked him about fasting on Monday, he said, yeah, it's good, that's the day on which I was born. So it means that he had some recollection of the day in which he was born, and he found that to be an auspicious day. So some use that as a reason for thinking that not only the particular day of the week in which he was born, but the date in history on which he was born too should be thought about as an auspicious day.
I'm curious, do you know when the tradition started of people celebrating his birthday?
Actually, Imam Jalaluddin al-Suyuti, in his collection of fatwas, has stated that it first started to be celebrated under a certain king, and he named that king. This is about 600 years into Islamic history. And he mentioned a scholar who wrote the first book to defend the practice. Actually, the king himself had bestowed a gift on that scholar who wrote a book at that time to justify the newly convened practice.
So what date was that? Do you know anything about that?
This is in the 7th century of the Hijra. So those who oppose the practice will say that this is a new practice. It wasn't there in the earlier generations, not in the first couple of centuries of Islam. The Prophet didn't practice it, peace be upon him, neither did his companions, nor those who followed them, the Tabi'un, and not even the Tabi'in, the followers of the successors. So we're several generations removed from the ideal period of Islam, and anything that newly arises later should be shunned. This is one way of thinking about it.
Do you personally think there's anything wrong with celebrating the birth of the Prophet Muhammad? There's a lot of controversy about this.
Yes, Imam Jalaluddin Suyuti, whom I respect very much for his great scholarship, he in fact is known in history as the most prolific writer in Islamic history. He's written on a wide variety of topics, almost on everything. So he certainly had a wide scope of knowledge, and in his defense, he mentioned the Prophet's regard for the day on which he was born, the Monday. He mentions also quotations from other scholars, such as Ibn al-Jazari, who argue that when the Prophet, peace be upon him, went to Medina, and he saw that the Jews were fasting on a certain day, and they said that's because God rescued Moses on this day. The Prophet, peace be upon him, said we have more right to Moses, and so we will fast on that day as well. So here an event in history is commemorated by observing the fast. And such arguments, he notes, has been given by previous scholars to him, great scholars such as Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, the commentary on Sahih al-Bukhari, And while Ibn Hajar says that basically this is a newfangled thing and newfangled things are basically to be rejected, he says nevertheless, if people were to observe it, but they stay away from harmful or un-Islamic practices while they observe it, if they do good things,
what would be considered good things?
like
Fasting
reciting the Quran, reciting issues about recounting the story of the birth of the Prophet, peace be upon him, and some of his life's teachings, then all of these are good things, and this should be fine. In which case, Imam As-Suyuti is arguing this will be called still an innovation technically, but a good one, a bid'atun hasana, a good innovation. And the use of this term itself, he traces back to the mention of Umar bin al-Khattab regarding the Taraweeh prayers in Ramadan, when he said that this is a good innovation. So some innovations then, according to this view, are good because they promote good things and there's nothing harmful in them. So you were asking about my personal view.
Yes.
Well, in essence, I would take the view that it's better to not add new celebrations to what we know from the Prophet, peace be upon him, especially when this is giving rise to controversy, because we have so many things that we need to unite on and work together on and do, and they're spelled out for us. So when this is something not spelled out either in the Quran or any of the authentic books of hadith, that we should do this, and some people are doing it and this is giving rise to controversy, we ask, well, what's the need? I mean, is this helping or hurting? But if some people are doing it, I don't see any reason to raise a controversy about it. They're doing a good thing. They're trying to remember the Prophet, peace be upon him. They're celebrating and giving thanks to God for the great benefit that God has sent a prophet, and this is the date by which they remember the fact that God has given us a prophet with his great message.
What are other ways that you can think of in which Muslims can show respect and love for the Prophet Muhammad? I'm sure there are many different ways that one could do so.
Yes, well, the prime principle that will suggest a variety of ways is that if we love the Prophet, peace be upon him, then we should follow him. Because he was not such a thing to just love and appreciate. He's not like a piece of diamond that you look at and say, okay, look at its many facets, how it shines and reflects the light and so on. He was sent to be followed, and that was his whole life mission, trying to get people to follow his example as teachings that have been bestowed on him from God. So if we love him, then we should follow him. This is the basic underlying factor that will suggest the many ways in which you can do that.
So what does it mean to follow him? I mean, it sounds
Yes.
it sounds simple, but it could mean many different things.
To follow the Prophet, peace be upon him, in a nutshell, means practicing compassion, being willing to share with other people the benefits that we have, beginning with the benefit of the great message which Allah has bestowed on us and guided us towards. The Quran, the book that he left behind, is a book of guidance. If anyone reads that and follows it, then we believe that his salvation and the life hereafter is assured, and also his life on this earth will be a life of happiness and well-being. So we should share this message with others. But some people may not like a religious message, but there are many other ways in which we can and should be kind to others. Acts of charity, of generosity, visiting patients in hospitals, visiting people in the prisons, looking out for the weak, the downtrodden, taking care of widows and orphans. These are the things for which the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was well known. And these are the teachings which would characterize the Muslim religion, the Islamic faith. And by doing this, Muslims would show that they love the Prophet, peace be upon him, much more than if they were to just simply celebrate a particular day as a commemoration of his birthday.
Is it also important, I mean, you hinted at this before, but is it also important to be able to understand his message such that one isn't misinterpreting it and sharing it with others in a misinterpreted way? Or practicing living one's life in a manner that may not necessarily be in line with the message of the Prophet Muhammad?
Yes, it is possible even today to understand the message of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Of course, you will continue to have different interpretations. This is a fact of life because God has created us differently. Each person has a unique set of fingerprints, unique DNA. We have unique ways of thinking. People have different levels of education. They have had different experiences in life. They have seen different things. And so things get filtered through our interpretive faculties, and this is inevitable, unavoidable. So people who think that, okay, we must all have the same interpretation, they're somehow missing the human element, and they're thinking as if we're robotic. Somehow a singular interpretation will be planted as a microchip in everybody across the board. It's not going to happen. So what we can do for ourselves is to use certain basic and reasonable principles. Knowing the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, the time and place in which he was, the context in which he lived and dwelt, the social, political factors that he had to deal with. And then we look at our present realities and how these are different from that. So we see what he was doing at that time, and we say, okay, if we want to follow him, we should do the same general things he was trying to do in that time without necessarily doing the specific things, because